Let's be real, living in a strata property is fantastic. Right up until the moment it's not. You know, when disputes with neighbors get complicated and you just need clear, factual answers. Today, we're diving into a really powerful tool for getting those answers, the Tribunal Expert. So, picture this. You've got water staining your ceiling. You are positive it's coming from the apartment upstairs. But your neighbor? They're blaming the building's old pipes. Suddenly, it's just your word against theirs. So how do you cut through all that back and forth and get to the facts? Well, this is where a tribunal expert comes in. Think of them as a neutral referee in your dispute. They're a specialist, maybe an engineer or a surveyor, and they're appointed by the Strata Management Tribunal itself. Their whole job is to investigate a technical problem, like that leak, and give a completely impartial report based only on the evidence. Okay, bringing in an expert sounds like a solid plan, right? But I know what you're thinking. That sounds expensive. So the first huge question is, who even decides how much this costs? The answer is tucked away in a very specific rule. Regulation 46, Subregulation 1. And the regulation is incredibly clear about this. It says that the tribunal, the very same group that's overseeing your dispute, is the one that sets the expert's fee. Now, this is a really big deal. It means that neither you nor your neighbor has any say in the price, which keeps the whole process fair and stops anyone from using cost as a weapon. So what are you actually paying for? Well, the regulation breaks it down into two simple parts. First, there's the fee for the expert's written reports. You know, that detailed document that breaks down the entire problem. And second, if the expert actually has to show up in person at the tribunal, there's a daily fee for their time. It's all very organized. Okay, so the tribunal sets a fair price. Great, but that leads us right to the next big question. Who actually has to pay for it? For that, we've got to look at the second part of the regulation. And this is really the crucial part, isn't it? Is it on the person who asked for the expert, the person who's found to be at fault, or is it someone else? Well, the law gives us a default answer. And here it is, the key legal phrase that answers our question. The regulation says the parties are jointly and severally liable. Now, I know, that sounds super complicated, like something straight out of a law textbook. But trust me, the idea behind it is actually pretty simple once we break it down. Here's the easiest way to think about it. Imagine you go out for dinner with a big group of friends. Jointly and severally liable just means the restaurant can ask one person to pay the entire bill, or they can go to each of you for your individual share. So in a strata dispute, this means the expert can get their payment from you, from the other party, or from both of you. The starting point is that you're both in it together. But, and you have to pay close attention here because this is a really important but, that default rule doesn't always apply. The law has a critical exception, a little clause that can completely flip the script on who pays. This is where things get strategic. So let's jump back into our leak scenario. You want to appoint an expert to finally prove your case. But what if your neighbor completely objects? What if they argue it's a waste of time and money? Well, that act of opposing it isn't just a simple disagreement. It's a legal move that can trigger that exception we just talked about. So let's just lay it all out. On one side, you have the general rule. If everyone agrees or no one objects, you both share the liability for the fee. Simple enough. But on the other side, the second one party formally objects, the financial responsibility can shift entirely onto the person who asked for the expert in the first place. And here's the exact wording from the law that makes this all happen. If your neighbor objects, the tribunal can require you, the party who applied for the expert, to provide security for the remuneration. So what in a world does that actually mean? Security is basically just a deposit. It's a financial guarantee. The tribunal's saying, look, since there's a disagreement here, we need the person who wants this expert to put the money up front. This makes sure the expert gets paid no matter what. And this is the critical part to understand. Your neighbor objecting can be a tactic to force you to shoulder that initial financial burden all by yourself. So we've walked through the regulation, the default rule, and that huge exception. Let's try to pull this all together into a few key takeaways you can actually use if you ever find yourself in this kind of spot. First, the tribunal sets the cost, which keeps it fair. Second, the default position is that you share the cost. But the most important strategic point is the third one. If the other side objects, you need to be prepared to potentially front the entire fee yourself as a security deposit. Knowing this could completely change how you approach your case. And all of this leaves us with a final question for you to think about. Knowing that you might have to put up the entire cost if your opponent decides to object, does this financial reality make you more cautious about requesting an expert? Or is the chance to get a definitive, factual answer a risk worth taking? It's a strategic decision that's right at the heart of navigating any strata dispute.